We begin today the Gemara on Daf Chaf, right at the beginning, the second line from the top of the Yamud. Ki Asa Rav Dimi. The Gemara here is continuing from a machlokes that it brought before between Rabbi and Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon. The machlokes was regarding Kiddush Yadayim v'Raglayim. The Kohen has to wash his hands and feet every morning before he does the Avodah. So according to Rabbi, if he washed his hands the night before, but then it goes through the night and then it's morning, Amud HaShachar, he has to wash his hands again. According to Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, if he washed the night before, then the next morning he can do the Avodah and he does not have to wash his hands and feet again. So in the language of the Gemara, Lina, overnight, is that passel the Kiddush Yadayim v'Raglayim or not? That's what the machlokes here is. So based on this, the Gemara has now another shaila. Ki Asa Rav Dimi Yomer Rav Yechanan. When Rav Dimi came, he said in the name of Rav Yechanan that boy Ilfa had the following shaila. The Divrei Oimer Ein Lina Mo'eles B'Kiddush Yadayim v'Raglayim. According to the opinion that overnight the kohen that washed his hands and feet, it will not disqualify it. He doesn't have to wash again. So the question now is regarding Mei Kir, the water that's in the Kir itself. This basin that's the Kir that's used to wash your hands and feet from it. So if that water is there overnight in the Azara of the Beis Hamikdash, Mao sheyifsulu belina or Mao sheyifsulu, would they become puzzle as well or not? So mi amrina, and the shaila is, should we say Hani lemai? What is this water for? L'kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. It's in order for the kohen to wash his hands and feet. So kiddush yadayim v'raglayim gufayu loy paslu belina. The kohen himself, when he washes his hands and feet at night, in the morning, it's not possible. He can continue doing the Avodah. So the same should be regarding the waters that is inside the Kir itself, that it's not going to become possible. Or I say, Kivin, the Kaddish Lahu, B'Kli Sharis, Mifsali. Since the water is now in this Kli Sharis, in the Kir, and it's there overnight, it does become possible. And Rashi says you can't compare it. The swat of the Gemara right now is you can't compare it to the kohen that washed his hands and feet by night, because you could say that the kohen washed his hands and feet and now it's dry already. There's no water there anymore, so there's nothing to become puzzle. So if he washed his hands at night, he could continue doing the Avodah in the morning. But the water, the actual water that's there in the Kli Sharis overnight in the Kir, maybe that would become puzzle. Okay, so this is only an Ibaya according to Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon.
It's not the water there.
The water is in a Kli Sharis, which is inside the Kir.
Yeah, but
that's the Kir.
Yeah, but the water became puzzle only because it was in a Kli Sharis, which is
correct. As opposed to
a person, even if his hands were wet, but he's not a Kli Sharis.
Okay, but I understand. The Gemara will soon bring. Rashi quotes it over here that they had a mechanism how to take the Kir, the Kli Sharis, and lower it down with a wheel below the Azara inside the Mayan in the spring, that it should not become puzzle overnight. According to Rabbi, that was definitely necessary. Rabbi says that the kohen has to rewash his hands in the morning. So regarding the waters of the Kir itself in the Kir, for sure, it would become puzzle overnight. According to Rav Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, though, that says that it wouldn't become puzzle in the morning. He could continue doing the Avodah. The shaila is whether this applies to the Kir as well. Okay, so the Gemara says, Ki Asa Ravin, when Ravin came, Amar Rab Yirmiyah, so he said in the name of Rab Yirmiyah, Amar Rab Ami, and Rab Yirmiyah said in the name of Rab Ami, Amar Rab Yechanan, which said in the name of Rab Yechanan, that Hadar Pashat Ilfa, that Ilfa answered this shaila. Ilfa, the one that asked the shaila, so he answered and said, Ke machlokes bezu, kach machlokes bezu. Just like there's an argument regarding the kohen himself, whether he has to rewash his hands in the morning, the same shaila applies also regarding the Kir, the water in the Kir overnight. Will it be a problem of Lina that it's overnight to disqualify these waters or not? Same machlokes. Malafon of Rabbi Yitzchak bar Bizna. So Rabbi Yitzchak bar Bizna says in front of him, and Rashi says this is in front of Rab Ami. Rabbi, are you saying that Ilfa resolved this shaila? And he said that the machlokes will be the same, just like it's a machlokes regarding the kohen himself. There's a machlokes regarding the water inside the Kir. But rather no. Hachi Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yechanan, Mishmei Ilfa. We have a different statement that Rav Asi said in the name of Rav Yechanan, also in the name of Ilfa. And this statement that was said in such a way that it's not clear that he answered the Ibaya that he had. What was the statement that they said in the name of Ilfa? Kiyar shaloi shikai mibe'erev. The kiyar that was not taken down with the wheel on the bottom of the azara, under the azara, in order to be overnight inside the mayan in the wellspring, in order not to be exposed overnight inside the klisharis and the kiyar. So it was not done. So shaloi shika, that is. He did not take it down. Mi be'erev, so in the evening, mekadesh mimeno la'avodas laila, a kohen that comes into the Beis Hamikdash, he can sanctify his hand, he washes his hands and feet from it. Ulamachar, and then the next morning, eina mekadesh, he does not wash his hands and feet from this kiyar. That's the statement that Ilfa said. Okay, so there's the kiyar there. It was not overnight in the bottom, where inside the well. It was up. It was overnight inside the azara in the klisharis. Now he's saying the kohen washes his hands and feet by night and not in the morning. Now what did he say? What did he mean to say with this? And here the Iboye was asked regarding the statement that Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Ilfa. When he says that the next morning this kohen does not wash his hands and feet from the kiyar, does that mean the leitzarech lekedusha? Does it mean to say that he doesn't have to wash his hands and feet again? Because we're talking about the kohen that already washed his hands and feet at night. So according to Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon, once you wash your hands and feet by night, the next morning it's not necessary to wash your hands and feet again. So if that's how you would interpret what Ilfa was saying, that would mean that the water of the kiyar is still good. It's all he's saying is, but the kohen doesn't have to wash his hands again because he already washed it from the night before. Or perhaps what Ilfa was saying is, if Sulu Belina, that you cannot wash your hands. He's not saying that you don't have to, but what he's saying is that in the morning, you cannot wash your hands from this kiyar. So this kohen, if he was there the night before, and he did not wash his hands at night, maybe he was doing his Aveda already from the day before, and he didn't wash at night, now he wants to do the Aveda in the morning, and he has to wash his hands and feet, he's not going to be able to wash his hands and feet from the kiyar because it's possible. Maybe that's what he meant to say. So right here we see that there was an Ibaya. What did Ilfa mean to say by this? Does it mean that he doesn't have to, or does it mean that he can't wash his hands and feet? And we didn't resolve what Ilfa meant to say by this statement. And you are saying that Ilfa did resolve and say that according to Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon it would be possible, but apparently it's not the case. Ilfa did not resolve his shaila. So the Gemara now tries to bring a raya from a Mishnah in Masechta Yuma. Tashema, let's see what it says in the Mishnah in Yuma. Ben Cotton. There was a kohen gadol by the name of Ben Cotton. Also, Shneim Osa Dad Lekir. He made the kir that it should have 12 different spouts. Why did he do this? Because for the Aveda, for the Korban Tamid in the morning, you need the participation of 12 different kainim for all the different details of the Korban Tamid. So in order that they could all come and wash their hands and feet at the same time, so he made a kir that should be large enough with 12 spouts for all of them. And another thing, Afu Asa Muchni Lekir. He's the one that made this Muchni, which was the wheel that they lowered down the kir under the Azara, so that the waters inside the kir shouldn't remain overnight inside the Azara, and then the waters there overnight would become pasul. So this is a clear Mishnah that it says that the waters in the kir become pasul. Now according to Rebbe, it's clear to us that the waters become pasul. Just like Rebbe says that the kohen must wash his hands and feet again every morning, so it's the same also with the waters inside the kir that it becomes pasul. But the Gemara now here suggests to say, my love, Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimoni. This Mishnah here is also according to Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon, that says that the kohen in the morning does not have to wash his hands and feet again, but nevertheless the waters that's inside the kiyar does become pasul, and therefore they made this muchni, the wheel, to take it into the mayan under the azara.
He's still in the kiyar.
Yeah, but it goes inside a mayan, it goes inside the wellspring, and therefore overnight it's submerged, it's not exposed. When inside the wellspring it doesn't become pasul. Says the Gemara, Lo Rebbe. Now I can tell you that Mishnah that the water in the kir becomes pasul is only according to Rebbe. But Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon would say that the water in the kir does not become pasul, just like the kohen himself does not have to wash his hands again in the morning. Says the Gemara, but that can't be because the beginning of that Mishnah or a Mishnah before, we see that it's the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon, as the Gemara here will bring in a moment. Sefer Nami Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon. So the next part, this part of the Mishnah that we're quoting here regarding the kir is also Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon. Where do we see that the Mishnah before is Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon? Because the Ktani Reisha In the Mishnah before there, in Masechta Yuma, it says as follows. That's the Mishnah where it speaks about the Aveda of Yom Kippur, and it says that Baloi Eitzel Pare. The Kayin comes to his part, to his bull, to shecht it. There's the goat that he's shechted for the sake of the kapara of Yidden. Then there's the par that the Kayin shechts for himself on Yom Kippur. So where was this par? Uparoi haya oimed. This position of the par of the Kayin Gadol was bein ha'ulam v'la mizbeach. He was standing between the ulam and the mizbeach. Reishay l'darim. His head was towards the south. Upanov l'mayda. But nevertheless, his face was turned towards the west, which is towards the Beis Hamikdash. Right, so the cow was positioned between north and south, but nevertheless his head was turned towards the west. The Gemara in Yuma explains the details why the cow has to be positioned exactly in this place. That's where the cow was. Now, v'akayin oimid b'mizrach. The kayin is standing in the mizrach of the azara. Upanav l'maydev, and the kayin is facing towards the maydev, which is where the Beis Hamikdash is. And there, the kayin would shecht the par, and then he would do the other ways, then he would come back to take the blood. Now the blood of this par has to be brought inside the heichal to be sprayed inside the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, but now the detail that we're focusing on over here is he shechted the par over there in that place between the ulam and the mizbech. Hey, you have the picture here in the Rashi, right? So you see over here where the mizbech is. The mizbech is positioned more closer to Darim, but the halfway of the mizbeach is right in the center of the half of the opening to the ulam. So the cow was right over there between the ulam and the mizbeach, actually on the tzafin side of the heichal. Okay, now, and it's in that place right there where the kayin shechted this cow. So the question is, how could he shech there? We know that the karbanis, which are kachim kachim, have to be shechted where? In the tzafin, in the north of the mizbeach. That's what the pasuk says. What qualifies as north of the mizbeach? So over here it's saying that between the mizbeach and the ulam is going to qualify as north of the mizbeach. That's not everybody agrees to this. So man shamit leida omar. Who's the opinion that says that bein ulam and the mizbeach, that between the ulam and the mizbeach tzafain, that qualifies for tzafain if you cut the azara in half and you have the portion of the azara that's between the ulam and the mizbeach in the tzafin side of it though, tzafin part of the azara, that qualifies as tzafin. Who's the one that says this? Rabbi Elazar bar Rab Shimon. This is Rabbi Elazar bar Rab Shimon's opinion. And the Gemara brings a source for this. There's a three-way machlokes regarding what qualifies as the tzafin of the mizbeach. The Tanyas we learned in the Braisa, Ezeu tzafin, what qualifies as the north of the mizbeach. So the first opinion is mikir mizbeach tzafaini, only from the wall, the north wall of the mizbeach, va'at kaisel azara tzafaini, until the wall of the northern wall of the azara, connected kol mizbeach kuloi tzafin. That area, only across, going straight across from the wall of the mizbeach till the wall of the azara in the north of the azara, that's what's called tzafin. This is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. So as you see it here in the picture, it's according to him, tzafin has to be literally on the north of the northern wall of the mizbeach, that area all the way to the wall of the north wall of the azara. Any other parts on the side of it, which is not mamish by the north of the wall of the mizbeach, is not tzafin of the mizbeach. However, Rabbi Elazar bar Rab Shimon, Ma'isiv, Rabbi Elazar bar Rab Shimon adds af bein ulam lemizbeach, that it could be north of the mizbeach, even if it's not north of the actual wall of the mizbeach. If it's further up, closer between the ulam and the mizbeach, but that area is also called north of the mizbeach. Rabbi, so that's what Rabbi Elazar bar Rab Shimon says, which fits with the point that it said in the Mishnah that we quoted before from Masechta Yuma, that's with the par of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur was between the ulam and the mizbeach, and he could shecht it right there. Doesn't have to be mamish literally and the north of the wall of the mizbeach, but it's closer up to the ulam, and that's like Rabbi Elazar bar Rab Shimon said. Rabbi Ma'isef, Rabbi adds even more, af mokaim drisas raglei hakayanim, even to the east of the mizbeach, the other side of the mizbeach, as you see here in the picture, closer down. in the picture here, closer down towards Mizrach. And that area, there was 22 amas there actually. 22 amas from there to the wall, the Shar Nikner of the east of the Azara. There was 11 amas, which was a space for the Kainim that walked there. And then there's another 11 amas further out where the Israelim could walk there. So Rebbe says that you can shecht the par on the north. What means north? Af makom drisas ragli hakainim. Even if it's on the east side of the Mizbeach, the area where the Kainim walk there, and makom drisas ragli Yisrael, the place even further out where the Israelim can walk over there, that's also considered to be north of the Mizbeach, as long as it's on the north part of the Azara. But it doesn't have to be only on the north, literally, of the wall of the Mizbeach, and not only on north, further in between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, but even further out on the east, down over there, that's also considered to be north. Aval, but now the Braisa adds that there's another area that everybody would agree that this does not qualify for north of the Mizbeach, and that is Mena Chalifais Ulifnim, from the area which is called Chalifais. If you see here in the picture, there's the Ulam, and then on the sides of the Ulam, there was an area where the Kainim kept their knives for the shechting of the karbanis, and it therefore was called Beis Chalifais. A chalaf is a knife. So, meaning if one would shecht the carbon all the way further in towards the west, on the side of the wall of the Ulam, that is already an area that's not called north of the Mizbeach. When you shech there, you can't even see the Mizbeach from there. So over there, everybody agrees. Hakol meidim shepasul. Everybody would agree that it's possible. So what's the Gemara trying to prove? Again, what?
It's a close place.
No. Even if it was done outside, not inside. He shechted it.
In the Beis Khalifa, it was a close place.
Yeah, it was a close place, the Beis Khalifais. So it's not talking about inside. He shechted it outside, outside next to that Beis Khalifais. Over there, everybody would agree that it's possible. So what did the Gemara try to prove from here? Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon is the one that says that you could shecht on the north, between the Ulam and the Mizbeach. So if so, the Mishnah, where it says that that's where the par of the Kohen Gadol was, that's Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon's opinion. So if so, the next Mishnah, where it talks about the kir that has to be submerged overnight, it's also Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon. But the Gemara says, how do you know that this is only Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon? V'tizbara, is it logical what you're proving from here? Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon, this is only according to Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon, v'loi Rebbe, but not according to Rebbe. Hashter, so now, Rebbe ad Rabbi Yosef ben Rabbi Yehuda Meisef. Rebbe adds to what Rabbi Yosef ben Rabbi Yehuda said. Rabbi Yosef ben Yehuda says, what's called Safin? Only literally what's on the north of the walls of the Mizbeach, of the north wall of the Mizbeach. So Rebbe adds to that. And Rebbe says, no, it could be even further out, towards the east. As you see here in the picture, the place where the Kainim and the Israelim walk. So Adar Balazar Rab Shimon Loi Meisef is what he's saying, is what Rebbe is saying, not adding on what Rebbe said. Meaning Rebbe doesn't disagree with what Rebbe said. Rebbe says that you could consider north even further up, what's between the Ulam and the Mizbeach. Rebbe's adding to that and saying not only what's further up, further west, but even further east down could also be considered to be tzafin. So Rebbe would agree that between the Ulam and the Mizbeach is considered to be tzafin. So in the Mishnah, where it speaks about the power of the Kohen Gadol being between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, that doesn't have to be only Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon's opinion. That could be according to Rebbe as well. So the Gemara explains, Anan hachi kamrinan. When we proved, and we tried to say here that it's only Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon, our proof was as follows. If you're going to say that Mishnah that says that the par is between the Ulam and the Mizbeach is according to Rebbe, why is it being brought over there in that area? Like ma b'makom drisas ragli kainim or b'makom drisas ragli Yisrael. Why does the Mishnah say that where was the part of the Kohen Gadol dafke there between the Ulam and the Mizbeach? Why dafke there between the Ulam and the Mizbeach? Why not further down towards the east, in the place on the other side of the Mizbeach, where the Kainim walk or the Israelim walk over there? It's mashma that the Mishnah is being medayik. It has to be dafke only towards the inside. Either it could be only in the inside between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, but not further out like Rebbe. So the Gemara says, no, it's still not a rayat, because Elamai Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimoni. So this Mishnah is only Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon's opinion, but the question still remains: why is the Mishnah saying that on Yom Kippur the part of the Kohen Gadol was between the Ulam and the Mizbeach? Why dafka there? Like ma mikir Mizbeach tzafayni at Kaisel Azara tzafayni. Why would you not have the par in the place where it's literally north of the Mizbeach? There is definitely the north. That's the best fulfillment of the tzafon of the Mizbeach, between the actual wall of the Mizbeach and the tzafon wall of the Azara. So what was the diak to have it dafka there further in between the ulam and the mizbeach? So what's the answer? So if you're going to say that this mission is according to Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon, why did they bring the par closer to the ulam? The answer is mishum chush the kohen gadol. Because of the avodah of the kohen gadol, Yom Kippur, we're concerned that the kohen gadol may get too weak. Kohen gadol is fasting, and he has to do all the avodah himself. And one of the things he has to do is after he shechts the par, then he has to take the blood and carry it inside the ulam, inside the heichal. So we want to shecht it as close to the heichal as possible, so that he should have the least space to walk to carry the blood. That's why they shechted it further in. So if so, hachanami, even if you're going to say that the Mishnah is going according to Rebbe's opinion, and it would be possible to shecht the par even further out, all the way on the other side of the mizbeach, as long as it's north. But mishum chosh the kohen gadol, because of the weakness of the kohen gadol, they didn't shecht it so far out. They shechted it as close to the heichal as possible. So there's no proof that that Mishnah in Yuma is according to Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon. So therefore the Gemara does not resolve the boya that it asks before, whether according to Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon would the water in the kiyah be passed overnight or not. So the Gemara Amar Rabbi Yochanan.
What makes the chulsha? He thought, what's the difference where you shechted just chulsha?
Because it's less space to carry the blood. Everything matters. So he's doing it.
Fast the whole day and shech.
Can't fast. That's the halacha. Okay. No, but the kohen gadol had a special koyach. Sagt the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Kiddush Yada v'Raglov l'Truma Sadeshen. If the kohen came into the Beis Hamikdash, and this is before Alois HaShachar, so it's not yet day, and he washed his hands and feet to do what? To take off the ashes that are in the mizbeach. L'machar, on the next day, so the kohen would come in, take off the ashes, and they would place it on the side of the mizbeach. So l'machar, the next day, l'machar means once it becomes morning, ein etzarech l'kadosh. He does not have to now wash his hands and feet again. Shekfar kiddush mitchilas aveda, because he already washed his hands and feet when he began the aveda, when he came in, even though it was before day. That's the statement of Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara now explains according to who was he saying this. So again, there's the machlokes between Rabbi and Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon. If he washed his hands and feet by night, does he have to wash again in the morning or not? So Laman, according to who did Rabbi Yochanan say what he's saying? Rabbi, was he saying this according to Rabbi? But Ha'amar, Rabbi says pasla lina, that if you wash your hands at night, overnight it's pasul, you have to wash again in the morning. So since he came in early enough that it's still night and he's doing the Trumas Hadeshem before Amud HaShachar, so then when it's morning, he should have to wash again. And if what Rabbi Yochanan was saying was according to Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon, but Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon says, Ein sarach lekadish afilim mikan va'ad asara yamim. Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon says that you can do the Aveda by night, and you can continuously do your Aveda, and if you don't stop, you can do the Aveda without washing your hands even for 10 days. So why does Rabbi Yochanan have to give a special reason that over here, because he began his Aveda of the new day, sounds like he's saying a new reason here, because it's the Tchilas Aveda of the new day that he came, although he washed his hands and feet before Amud HaShachar, he's not going to have to wash again. According to Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon, this reason is irrelevant. Answers the Gemara, Amar Abaye, so Abaye says, L'olam l'Rebbe. What Rabbi Yochanan is saying is according to Rebbe's opinion. Velina the Rabbanan he. This whole concept that Rebbe says that if you washed your hands and feet from the night before, that you're going to have to wash again in the morning, this is all just a requirement midrabanan. Rebbe would agree it's not a problem. You wash your hands and feet the night before, you can continue doing the Aveda the next day. It's all just a gzeira midrabanan. And Rashi says the reason Chachamim made this gzeira because we find a psul of lina regarding karbanis and other matters. So in order not to confuse and think that I see here that lina is not a problem, that it's not a problem for other things, so therefore the Chachamim were geyser regarding washing your hands and feet that you have to wash again in the morning. But it's all just a requirement of midrabanan. And therefore, Umaydi, in this case, the Rabbanan, the Rebbe that is, will agree, the Mikrais HaGever V'at Safra Loi Pasla. The kind that comes in the morning to do the Aved of Trumas Hadeshen, so although it's not technically day yet, it's not Amud HaShachar, but it's the time when the rooster is already waking up people, and from that time until Amud HaShachar is a very short period of time. So loy pasla, if he washed his hands after that time and he's continuing to do his aveda in the day, it's not going to pasla because people see that this kohen washed his hands and feet. To them, it seems like he washed it in the morning. It's a very short period of time. People are not going to think, he washed at night and then it went overnight. So therefore, there's no reason to be geyser that you should have to wash your hands. So in this case, Rebbe is maida that it's good enough. You wash your hands for Trumas Hadeshen, and you don't have to wash your hands again when it's Amud HaShachar. Rava says, no, Rebbe would not be maida in this case. According to Rebbe, you would have to wash your hands and feet again. But La'ilam, Rabbi Lazar Rab Shimon, this is Rabbi Lazar Rab Shimon's opinion. The question we asked is, according to Rabbi Lazar Rab Shimon, this is not only when the Kayan comes in the morning to do Trumas Hadeshen, even from the night before, he wouldn't have to wash again. So why is Rabbi Yechanan saying specifically over here, because he's beginning his Aveda, a new day? So the answer is because V'ra Rabbi Yechanan, Dvarav, Betchilas Aveda. Rabbi Yechanan is paskening like Rabbi Lazar Rab Shimon, only partially though. He agrees to what Rabbi Lazar Rab Shimon says only if the Kayin is coming now to begin his Aveda of the new day, and he's beginning his Aveda before it's Amud HaShachar. Then he says that because even though it's not technically morning yet, it's going to be a good enough. But V'loi b'seif Aveda. However, a Kayin that was in the Beis HaMikdash during the night, why was he there during the night? Not because he's beginning his Aveda from the next day, rather because he's actually completing his Aveda from the day before. There's all the pieces of the Karbonis from the day before that have to be burnt in the Mizbeach, and he's doing the Aveda, completing the Aveda from the day before. On that though, Rabbi Yechanan says if the Kayin is completing his Aveda from the day before, he's going to have to wash again in the morning. But this is all only according to Rabbi Lazar Rab Shimon. But according to this interpretation of Rava, according to Rebbe, a Kayin that comes to do his Aveda in the morning, and it's still not Amud HaShachar, he's doing the Trumas Hadeshen, then when it becomes Amud HaShachar, it's morning, he's going to have to wash his hands again.
So you can stop the Avodah before, without washing, and then when...
He has to wash again. Yeah. Okay, so the Gemara asks on this interpretation of Rava from the following Braisa. Meisvei, or it's a Mishnah actually, in Masechta Tamid. Meisvei, the question over here was asked, it says, Ra'uhu echav ha'kayinim sheyarat. The brothers, the Kainim that were there in the Beis HaMikdash, they see the Kain that's coming down from the Mizbeach, and the Mishnah they are speaking about, what we're speaking about here, Trumas Hadeshen. Kain is coming down to take off the ashes from the Mizbeach. What they would do with the ashes is, they would take the ashes of them that were spread around on the Mizbeach, and they would put it in an area in the Mizbeach, which was called a tapuach. It was like an apple, meaning it was like a pile for the ashes. And whatever, if it was too much, then they would take it out from there, and they would take it out from the Beis HaMikdash. So the other Kainim saw this Kain coming down from the Mizbeach. Now, Vehein Ratzu, and these other Kainim that see that he's already beginning to prepare for the Aveda of the next day, and they would run, Ubo, and they come, Mieru, and they quickly went, V'kitcher Yedeim, V'ragleim, and Akir. And they washed their hands and feet from the Kir. So now the Gemara understands at this point, that these Kainim that are here that come and run to wash their hands and feet, which Kainim are we talking about? We're talking about the Kainim that were there all night. They were completing the Aveda from the night before. And nevertheless, what does it say over here? That these Kainim, they would come and they would wash their hands and feet again from the Kir in the morning, after Amud HaShachar. Or they would wash their hands and feet before Amud HaShachar, that is, okay? Because this is still at the time of Trumas Hadeshen, before Amud HaShachar, they would come and wash their hands and feet again at this time. That's what it says there in the Mishnah. So now the question is, why is it required for them to wash their hands and feet again? And how is that going to work? How is that going to be good now for the whole next day? According to Abaye, that explained that what Rabbi Yechanan said before follows Rebbe's opinion. And what did Abaye explain? Because Rebbe will agree the mikrais hagever at safra loy paslalino, that if you wash your hands before it's actually Amud HaShachar, before it's actually day, but it's already that time when the rooster wakes up people. It's right before Amud HaShachar. That's when the Trumas Hadeshen is done. So if you wash your hands then when it becomes morning, you don't have to wash your hands again. It's good enough. So therefore I can explain, what is this Mishnah saying here? Ha mani Rebbe. This Mishnah is according to Rebbe's opinion. Why is it a dafka according to Rebbe's opinion? According to Rabbi Lazar Rab Shimon, these Kainim that were already there in the Beis HaMikdash the whole night, and they were doing their Aveda, according to Rabbi Lazar Rab Shimon, it wouldn't be necessary to wash their hands and feet again. But according to Rebbe, because they washed their hands and feet already from the night before, so now when they're coming and they're seeing the Kayin to come and do the Trumas Hadeshen in the morning, they do have to wash their hands again. When are they washing their hands again? They're washing their hands again right before Amud HaShachar, short while before. And that qualifies. That's good for the whole next day. As Abaye explained, because it's so shortly before Amud HaShachar, it's good enough for the whole day. So we can understand what the Mishnah is saying according to Rabbi's opinion. However, but according to Rabbi Lazar, you have to say that this Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Lazar Bar Shimon. But according to Rabbi, if you're washing your hands from when the rooster wakes up people in the morning, before it's actually morning, before it's Amud HaShachar, pasla lina. The washing the hands then is not good enough. It's still nighttime. So it's not going to qualify for the whole next day. So then Hamani, who is this Mishnah when it says here that these Kayanim are washing their hands when they see the Kayan doing Trumas Adeshan and they're washing their hands and it's going to be good for the remainder of the day? How? If this would follow Rabbi's opinion, Pasla Lina. According to Rave, according to Rabbi, it must be done after Amud HaShachar. So they're washing too early. It's not good enough. On the other hand, if this Mishnah is following Rabbi Lazar Bar Shimon's opinion, but Ha'omar Rabbi Lazar Bar Shimon says, even if you're doing the Aveda for 10 days, you don't have to do a kiddush, you don't have to wash your hands and feet again. So these kainim, the Gemara now is understanding that we're talking about the kainim that were there all night, and therefore now they want to continue doing their Aveda in the morning. It's not necessary at all for them to wash again. So how can we, this Mishnah is not according to Rabbi Lazar but Rabbi Shimon, and it's also not according to Rabbi. They're washing too early. So how do we explain this Mishnah in Talmud? So the Gemara answers, La'olam ke Rabbi Lazar but Rabbi Shimon. According to Rave, that Mishnah actually is Rabbi Lazar Bar Shimon's opinion. But our assumption is wrong. We were assuming that Mishnah is speaking about Kainim that were there all night, and they already washed their hands from the night before, and therefore it's not necessary for them to wash again. But so the Gemara now says, no, v'hacha b'mai askina, when it says that the Kainim came in and they saw the Kain beginning the Aveda of Trumas Hadeshan, and they came to run to wash their hands and feet, who are we speaking about? B'Kain echadati. It's Kainim that are fresh, that weren't there all night doing the Aveda. And of course, Rav Lazar ben Shimon would agree that they have to wash their hands and feet, and they wash it before Amud HaShachar, and that would work for the remainder of the day. Therefore, there's no question here on Rav's opinion. The Gemara has another shaila regarding the requirement to wash the Kiddush Yadayim V'Ralayim, washing the hands and feet. Yitziyeh, if the Kayin washed his hands and feet, now he left the Azara, he left the Beis HaMikdash, Ma'u Shetoyel B'Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim. Will this have an effect to passel his washing of hands and feet? Then he has to now come and wash his hands and feet again. If you're going to say like Rabbi Lazar Bar Shimon's opinion, that Lina Loi Pasla, Rabbi Lazar Bar Shimon says that overnight it does not passel what he washed at night, that he can still continue doing the Aveda the next day. So I could say maybe that's because the Loi Parish, he didn't separate from doing the Aveda, so therefore he could continue the next morning. Well, you'd see it, the Parish, but if he leaves the Azara, so he separated. So what happens is, Asuche Masech Daite. So he wasn't paying attention anymore to doing the Aveda. He may have put his hands in a place that's not pure, and therefore he has to wash his hands and feet again. Or perhaps I say, Kivin de biyadei lachzai, since at any moment he can go back in, even when he leaves, he knows that he can come back in and return to the Aveda le masach. He doesn't take off his attention of remaining pure, and therefore he doesn't have to wash his hands and feet again. Okay, so from Rashi here, it's mashma, the way the Mefarshim explained this, that the shaila of the Gemara is both according to Rebbe and according to Rabbi Lazar Bar Shimon. The shaila is according to Rebbe, is yitziyeh b'chlal something that passels, this that he washed his hands and feet? Yaitze. Is this something in itself enough to disqualify? He washed his hands, but yaitze itself, it will passel, and now he has to wash his hands and feet again. Not related to the svara that the Gemara here says, because of Hesach Hadas. Do I say leaving the Azara requires to wash your hands and feet again? That's a shaila even according to Rebbe. And then the Gemara says, even if you're going to say that Yaitze, leaving in itself, is not going to disqualify, but maybe according to, then the Gemara has another shaila, according to Rabbi Lazar Bar Shimon, when he says that the night that does not disqualify, do I apply the same thing regarding Yaitze, or do I say that maybe by Yaitze, over here there's Hesach Hadas, and therefore you do have to wash your hands and feet again? Okay, so the Gemara says, Toshama, I'll bring you a raya from...
At night,
correct, yeah. Toshama, so the Gemara says, let's bring a raya from the following brayse. It says, Kiddush Yodav V'Raglov, he washes hands and feet, V'nitmu, and then his hands became tamei. So we're talking about a kind of a tumah that's only midrabanan, where only your hands become tamei. If it's a real tumah min atayre, his whole body becomes tamei, but only his hands are tamei. So matbilan, he tivels his hands and he could continue. He doesn't have to be mekadosh his hands again. Yatsu, if they went out, he remains in his kedusha and he does not have to wash his hands and feet again. So here it's talking about when it says yatsu, that he sticked his hands out. Not he went out completely. If he sticked his hands out of the azara, then he doesn't have to wash his hands and feet again. So I see over here that leaving, going out, does not require to wash again. Says the Gemara, no, that's no proof from here. Yatsu yadav loikami bayalan. If only his hands, he stuck it out of the azara, that wasn't the shaila. Ki kami bayalan yatsa kal gufay. Our shaila is if he steps out with his entire body. Here the shaila is whether he can continue doing the aveda or he was masir das and he has to wash his hands again. So what's the halacha? Toshama. So the Gemara brings a raya. It says shaloi. Another brayse. It says shaloi rochutz yadayim v'raglayim. If he didn't wash his hands and feet, mekadesh b'klishares bifnim. So he washes his hands inside the Beis HaMikdash, or inside the Azara, that is. Kiddush b'klishares b'chutz. So when it says the klishares, what you see from this is you don't have to necessarily wash your hands only from the kir. It can be from any other water that's in any other klishares in the Beis HaMikdash inside. Now kiddush b'klishares b'chutz. If he washed his hands from a klishares, but it's outside the Azara, or he washed it from another vessel, from any vessel which is not the klisharis, even if it's inside the azara. Or he was taival. He went to the mikveh in a meimaira, in a cave. It's which is could be in any kind of mikveh. What the Rashi says is usually mikveh would be like a mikveh we have today. It could be in a spring, but this is in a meira. And he does his aveda psula. It's going to be puzzle. So what it's saying here is that for a kohen, it's not enough that he goes to the mikveh. For a kohen, he specifically has to wash his hands and feet from a klisharis. That could be a kir or another kind of klisharis, and where it has to be inside the azara, not outside. So the Gemara is medayik from this brayse. What do you see over here? Taime the kiddush b'klisharis b'chutz. It's saying over here a special halacha that if he washed his hands and feet in a klisharis outside, that it's not going to be good. Ha kiddush b'fneim v'yatza. But from this it sounds like that if he was mekadosh, if he washed his hands on the inside and he stepped out, avedasek sheira, then the aveda would be kosher. If stepping out automatically disqualifies and you have to wash your hands and feet again, why would this brayse have to say, oh, he washed his hands and feet outside, so because he washed outside, it's a problem? The problem is not that he washed outside. Anytime you step out, automatically you have to wash again. So it's mashma that stepping out in itself is not a problem, would be kosher. Says the Gemara, no, maybe what this brayse is saying is, Dilma kiddush b'klisharis b'chutz. When this brayse says that he washed his hands and feet outside, what it means is, heichi dami, kagoin da apik yadi lebar v'kiddush. He's still standing inside. He just stuck his hands out and he washed his hands while his hands were outside. But his body, he's still standing inside. So, avol, after the parentheses, avol, yotza kol gufay tibaylach. But the shaila regarding if he stepped out, that still remains a shaila. So we can't prove anything from this brayse. Amalei Rav Zvid Rav Papa. So Rav Zvid says to Rav Papa, Tashema, I'll bring you a raya from the Verhaling brayse. It says, Yotza chutz l'mechitzas chaymes azara, a kohen that steps out from the wall of the azara. Im lishois, if he went out thinking that he's going to remain there for a while, so ton tvila. Before he comes in, he has to toivel. Besides washing his hands and feet, or actually, it says here he has to go to the mikveh, he has to toivel, because once he's planning on staying outside, he could have come in contact with something and been completely tamei, so he has to toivel before he comes inside. In the fisha, if he was going out just temporarily, then ton kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. So then he just has to wash again his hands and his feet. So here you clearly see that if he steps out, even just l'fisha, he has to wash his hands and feet again. Amalei, so Rav Papa answers, that price is different. Hacha b'mayeskina, on the case there is, kagay sheyatza lahasach raglav or lahatal mayim. Over there, this kohen walked out to relieve himself, whether lahasach raglav, which is, Rashi says here, this refers to gedolim, or lahatal mayim, just to urinate. There is the two halachas. If he goes out lahasach raglav, so then he has to go to the mikveh again. And if it's just lahatul mayim, so then it's enough if he's mekadesh yadayim v'raglayim. So in other words, this price is not just saying if the kohen stepped out, then he has to be mekadesh yadayim v'raglayim again. It's only if you went out and you used the bathroom, then he has to either tovel again, or he has to do kiddush yadayim v'raglayim again. But the Gemara asks, that actually says clearly in the continuation of the Braisa, that if he relieved himself, so then he has to tovel again, and if he just is matal mayim, he urinates, then he has to wash his hands and feet again. So that the Braisa says afterwards clearly. So in the first part of the Braisa, it seems like that he's just walking out. Answers the Gemara, no, it's one continuation. Tani v'hadim mefarish. The Braisa first says the point of the kohen walking out, and then it clarifies, it explains he didn't stam walk out. He walked out to relieve himself, and it's only in this case that he has to tovel again and wash his hands and feet again. But regarding our case, our shaila, whether the kohen has to be mekadesh yadayim v'raglayim again when he stepped out, we don't have a raya from here. Tashamas, the Gemara brings a raya, says let's bring a raya from the following Braisa. Para. The kohen that comes to do the Aveda of the Para Aduma. Now, where's the Aveda of the Para Aduma done? Outside of Yerushalayim, on Hara Mishcha, which is Hara Zeisim. Rabchi Bar Yosef Almas, Rabchi Bar Yosef says, so this kohen, Mekadesh B'Klisharis B'fnim, he first has to come and wash his hands and feet in a Klisharis properly inside the Azara, and then V'Yetze. And then he goes out to do the Aveda for the Para Aduma. Rabbi Yechanan Amar, however, Rabbi Yechanan says, since the Aveda of the Para Aduma is all done outside, so this is different than a regular Aveda. He doesn't have to wash his hands and feet inside the Beis HaMikdash, inside the Azara. He washes outside, and he can wash even from a regular vessel. Even from a vessel, a earthenware vessel that people drink from it. So, but here, what's the Raya from here? The Raya is from Rabchi Bar Yosef. Rabchi Bar Yosef says that even for the Para Aduma, it is required to wash your hands and feet properly inside the Azara. And what does he say? You go inside, you wash your hands inside, and then you're going out to do the Aveda of the Para Aduma outside. So you see that walking out does not disqualify what you washed inside. Rav Papa says there's no raya from here because Shani Para, the case of the Para is different. Since everything is done outside with the Para Aduma, so over here you can't say that he becomes a puzzle when he does the Aveda outside. Para Aduma is lenient, it's different. It's being done over there outside. So therefore, lepaslaba you'd see it. Walking out will not puzzle when he washed his hands inside the Azara. The question is, Yochi Lomali the Mekadesh, why does he have to wash his hands and feet inside the Azara? According to Rabchi Bar Yosef, if you're telling me that it's lenient, it's done outside, and therefore if he walks out, it doesn't disqualify what he washed inside, so then why does he have to go inside to wash his hands there? So the answer is, Ke'en Avayde Prim, that even though it's done outside, but it still is done similar to the Avayde that's inside. So it's on one hand it's more lenient that if he walks out it doesn't disqualify, but on the other hand he does have to wash similar to a carbon inside the Azara. So therefore the Gemara did not resolve this ibaya that we had here regarding Yaitse. According to Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Shimon, whether it's a Hesach Hadas, does he have to wash his hands and feet again?